We are on air. It is Thursday, October 29th. We are all recovering from bad camp. Some of us are recovering from bad camp in spirit, if not recovering from bad camp in person. But it went really well. We had our first Backdrop Summit, which I thought was super exciting. We had probably 25 people in and out all day, learning stuff, sharing stuff. It was, I thought, a very successful event. We had a bunch of people who were super, super interested in it, asked a lot of really great questions, and then we had a lot of kind of super technical answers, which I hope did not deter the people who were not interested in the technical details. But I thought it was a whole lot of fun. So we're happy to have survived and had a very successful initial Backdrop event. So general announcements today. Our t-shirts and hoodies are here. If you guys, I'm not sure if you can see this, I'm wearing a Backdrop t-shirt. It's white, but it's like a heathered white, so it's like a soft, super soft material, but it's white with little gray freckles, which is pretty nice. And it's got our favorite dragon, the drop, on it. And then there's also these super soft hoodies, which is the same material from Bad Camp 2013, if anyone has that one. But it has a very subtle little backdrop on the front. And on the back, it has, I'm not sure how to get far enough away. Can you tell me if I'm far enough away? Anyone see a dragon?
Yep, that works.
Okay, good. It has the dragon on the back, and they're really comfortable. And if you want one for yourself, you can go to backdropcms.org/contribute, and it's $25 if you want a T-shirt, $50 for a hoodie, and that includes the cost of shipping. So if you weren't able to make it to Bad Camp, we can send it to you wherever you are. Those are donations to the Backdrop Foundation, which will then help us pay for servers and hire designers and do all of the stuff that we're supposed to be doing that apparently costs money. So that's what that's for. We bought a ton of them, so we're hoping that they'll last for the whole year. Last year we bought a couple of t-shirts for various events, and they were all gone by the end of said event. And then everybody wanted dragons, so we needed new ones anyway. So we got a whole bunch. Hopefully they'll last as long as you guys want them. But we will be taking them with us as we parade around the country to various different events. So you can also get them in person. Oh, t-shirts. T-shirts are also free to Backdrop contributors. So if you're on this call, you're likely a Backdrop contributor. And if you have participated in the issue queue or written any patches or worked on any modules, we definitely are happy to extend t-shirts to you guys. Depending on where you live, we can probably also include shipping, I would say, anywhere in the U.S. Outside the U.S., we'll have to look up how expensive that is. But we would like to get you dragon shirts if you want dragon shirts. So let us know. Anyone who watches this video later who wants one, send an email to info@backdropcms if you can't find out how to get one on your own. We can definitely hook you up with stuffed, comfortable dragon loot. All right. Other announcements, as usual, Drupal Camp Utah, which we've been announcing for the past few weeks, was the same weekend as Sand Camp, has moved its dates. They do not want to make people choose between sea and ski. So the new event dates are now March 4th and 5th, and they are still looking for talks on Backdrop. So if you want to go to both the ocean and the ski land mountains, you can do that. We also have free PHP store licenses for Backdrop Contrib developers. So if you have joined the Backdrop Contrib group and are working on or are working on any particular core issues, we can get you a Backdrop or PHP Storm license. But send an email to info@backdropcms.org and we can help get that worked out. No official updates from the PMC this week. Nate, do you want to talk about community growth?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So it's been 2 weeks since our last meeting because last week was the Backdrop Summit at Bad Camp, which went awesome, as Jen said. And it's been a pretty productive past couple of weeks in the Backdrop ecosystem. We now have 166 total projects for Backdrop CMS in the Backdrop Contrib GitHub group. That's 5 new projects since our last meeting, so awesome that we're still just chugging along, porting modules every which way. or writing new ones. We love new modules. There are 91 official 91 official projects on backdropcms.org. That discrepancy is because all of GitHub is just every project that has been ported to Backdrop that might not be yet ready for production, and then the modules that are ready for production or stable enough get tagged with official releases on GitHub, and when you make an official release on GitHub, it synchronizes over to backdropcms.org. So there are 2 new projects since our last meeting, which we're very excited about. Even more exciting than new projects is new contributors. Since our last meeting, we've had 3 new developers join the Backdrop Contrib group, and we love to have new Contrib developers. It's actually pretty, I mean, those things are kind of correlated because we normally ask people to port a module or write a module in their own personal GitHub account so that we can do a basic review, and then we review it, and then they move their project into the official Contrib group. So 3 of those new total projects were written by our 3 new Contrib authors. So that's really awesome. Welcome, guys, into the Backdrop ecosystem, and we're really happy to have some new Contrib developers in our group. If you're interested in joining the Backdrop Contrib group, porting a module or a theme or writing a new one, there's a group that we have, or a repository we have specifically for requesting that you get access to the Contrib group, and that is at github.com/backdrop-ops/contrib, and that is an issue queue basically used specifically to, and sometimes we talk about Contrib projects that need to be ported, but mostly we talk about people that are applying to join the Backdrop Contrib group and get access to that group. Also, I guess, I mean, I can slide this in here. I was setting up permissions on the GitHub Backdrop Contrib group recently, and GitHub recently redid their permission system, which is something we might look into in the future, because they've made it so that now you can have per repository access to individual contributors. You don't need to set up individual groups anymore. Like, you used to have to set up a group on GitHub and then assign the permissions to the group and then put the users in the group, which was kind of tedious, because if you had a large group like the Backdrop Contrib group, then you couldn't say certain authors only have access to certain repositories. You just had to say everybody has access to all repositories, or you had to be super tedious and make a separate group for every single repository, both of which were really painful management-wise. They recently upgraded their permission system so that they're more granular now, and we can assign permissions to an individual user per repository without setting up a group first. So it's actually a pretty useful enhancement where we can say, like, for example, Andy originally ported the web form module, and let's say I was not a member of the Contrib group. Andy could add me, or maybe the other maintainers from web form, and grant them write access just to the web form module without giving them access to all of the other modules in the Contrib group. So it's kind of exciting that GitHub is moving towards more granular permissions, and it's nice that we didn't have to do any work for that. But we will need to ultimately integrate probably those permissions with backdropcms.org. Once people can create user accounts, then potentially they could start managing access to the repositories from backdropcms.org, and we could send that information over to GitHub. Just some ideas. Anyway, it's great. Infrastructure is improving without any work on our behalf, and we love it when that happens. Speaking of infrastructure, that's always the next item on the agenda. So infrastructure tasks, some things that we're trying to work on around our flagship website and just in general the Backdrop ecosystem. Update checking for Backdrop CMS, the thing that tells you when new versions of Contrib modules or new versions of Backdrop are available. That's been working for a long time. There's some interesting work going on in in the backdrop issue queue around making notifications better, which would be a really interesting thing to improve to make it so that when your site has new updates, instead of like yelling at you at the top of every single page of the administration section, we're looking at doing things like putting a little like notification badge in the admin bar instead. So rather than yelling at you all the time, maybe there'd just be like a red number 1 if there's one critical update in your admin menu, so that way you would go, oh, maybe there's something I should look at up there, and then go to your status report or go to your available updates page and see that you have updates that you need to apply, rather than yelling at you on every single page like with a big red error. So that would be an interesting issue to tackle. I don't have the issue number offhand, but I'll put that in the agenda once I get a second. So other things around update checking, our analytics aren't working quite right, that we get all this information from all of the backdrop websites that are out there, and we record what versions of all modules they're running, but then our daily number crunching script just throws away all of the accrued data, and it's kind of sad that we collect all this stuff and then we just throw it all away because our script is broken. So if you'd like to take a look at that, there's an issue in project module, which powers the usage statistics, in the contrib group to try to figure out what's wrong with that script. That's issue number 9 in the project issue queue. Let's see. And we would like long-term to collect information besides what modules are running, like if you have clean URLs turned on or off, or other things like that. And we'd like to add charts. As soon as we get that usage data actually collecting correctly, add charts to it so you can see a nice pretty graph of the increased usage of your modules over time. Let's see. There's no real updates here on Project Browser. Project Browser is issue 870, which would allow you to find modules from within Backdrop without needing to leave your website. So you can already install a module by copying and pasting a URL to a zip file, but Project Browser would allow you to actually find modules and then connect that with the current installer to make it so that you could find and then install modules without ever like SSHing into your server, FTPing files. You would just click on the module, say install, and then it would install the module. So that issue is issue 870, and that's actually been really pretty. I mean, that's really pretty close to getting done. It's just that we're kind of stuck because we're doing so many things at the same time. But we'd love to see that in the next release. Okay, Drush for Backdrop, our longest running infrastructure issue. Jen, I usually let you tackle this one. I think you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, I was just rereading that issue. I know last week Jeff tried it out, the little hack that we had in the queue for getting it running, and it looks like you were able to get modules downloading and cache clearing, but still no database connection. But that's funny because there's no database connection. How can it clear database tables? I don't know. Anyway, Uber Hacker has now posted a couple of scripts that he's been using for getting Drush to work that do things like set variables and load different files. I'm not sure how much help that will be. I mean, I guess if anyone wants to get Backdrop running the same way he did, that could be useful short term. I don't think it's helpful to us long term to try and figure out what we need to change. But I'm going to look through them anyway and see if there isn't anything in there that we need to put in our Backdrop Drush loader that maybe would help get things going. So I'll take a look at that today and see if we can't move that forward. I did not actually get to spend any time with Greg Anderson at Bad Camp, except for at dinner. We went to Ethiopian food. It was fantastic. But we were not, our fingers were messy when you eat Ethiopian food, so that does not make for good typing. So we didn't actually make any progress on getting Drush going for Backdrop. But I will follow up with him now and see maybe we can set up a time to like meet at the Pantheon office and work on it for an afternoon. I think that would probably be a good plan to try and figure out short-term versus long-term plans. Uh, should I carry on? So other things we're working on for Backdrop infrastructure include our primary website. Now that we have module themes and layouts appearing there, we also want to start to allow people to log into the website and do things like edit their project. So if you are a contrib maintainer, you can edit the project page for that module if you wanted to add something. We also want to add, once people are allowed to log in, other things people can do there, like posting websites that they've been working on into our showcase or listing themselves as a Backdrop service provider. And so I think it would probably be good to start thinking about how to start supporting our community a little better with our own website. I personally want to see a single sign-on there with GitHub as well, so all of our people who already have accounts with GitHub don't need to worry about creating new accounts on the Backdrop website. But for people who aren't developers, I think it's still nice to give them something to feel like they're joining, even if they aren't already on GitHub. So they can link. We'll try and get a way to link those up later. Other things, we have, I guess, on our agenda for the main website include like an event calendar, so we don't have to keep using our Google feed, and job boards. And I think it would also be good to look at all of the other stuff that's worked really well for the Drupal community and plan on putting those up for the Backdrop community as well. So back to Backdrop. Backdrop itself, our next release is Backdrop 1.2.3, which is kind of exciting number-wise. And it looks like 7.4.0, and I think 7.4.1 is out now too. So it would be good to take a look at the fixes that got into Drupal 7 and get those ready for Backdrop. I think we do have an issue for this. I don't know if this agenda's been updated.
Yeah, I haven't seen an issue for 7.40. 7.41 was a security release, and it only contained one fix for overlay module, which of course we don't have. So there's nothing to port in 7.41.
Okay. There wasn't anything else in that? Just one fix? Okay.
Yeah, that's the way security releases are supposed to be. That they're supposed to just include the security fixes, but they usually include something else. But
okay.
I think that's
sometimes also more than one security fix in any given release too. But okay, so 7.41 we can ignore. I just removed that from our list. So yeah, I would say we should look at what went into 7.40 and see if we can roll some of those patches into the next Backdrop release. We have a couple of handful of bugs in Backdrop we could also be fixing at the same time if we wanted. But nothing that is mission critical needs to get out urgently. For our next minor release, which is 1.3, which is supposed to come out on January 15th, this is a user experience and cleanup release. So we've added a bunch of new features into Backdrop. We need to spend some time making sure those features are quality, making sure our product is easy to use, and also cleaning up some stuff that was just left over and was a little icky from previous versions of Drupal. We've got a great meta list if you want to look at the GitHub issue tracker milestone for 1.3.0 of things that are bothering people that we want to get into that release. The agenda for today shows a handful of those. Follow-up for the layouts, which is a new feature we put in. Follow-up for the rich text editor, which is a new feature we put in. Trying to improve the field UI, which is something that's been problematic since Drupal 6. Getting that cleaned up would be fantastic. Trying to get the views UI to be better, more responsive. I think there's been a little bit of work going on in that in Drupal 8 that we could look at and see what it is they're doing if we want to do the same. Getting our last administration views converted. I think the last one left is the comment view, and I think the blocker there is making sure that we get the bulk operations working for comments. And then we have a little cleanup on the menu UI, although there's some debate about how that should actually be done. Same thing for a couple of other interfaces. I think menu UI is similar to field UI, and there were, I don't know, things we can compare about implementations in one that we could share with the other. And then just trying to get our terminology correct. I filed a bunch of issues a couple weeks ago about trying to clean up, edit, and configure. I think some of those might still need some more work. But I think it will be great if we can clean that up. I would also like to see, and I'm not sure if we have an issue for this, but getting the admin menu fixed so that it doesn't say list. It would actually say what it's listing. I think I'll try and find that and tag it for the release. I think there is an issue because we worked on it a while ago. We already made some improvements, but there are some other ones where, like, when I show this to someone for the first time, I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing, and I would love to get rid of the that's embarrassing moments for people who aren't already familiar with Drupal and don't already know their way around the UI. Just kind of make it a little more intuitive. For the next minor release that comes after 1.3.1.4, this is the one that's scheduled for May 15th. We've already started to talk about the kind of features that we want to include in that, since we aren't going to be including features in the 1.3 release. And the first thing I think that we should worry about is figuring out how to deal with references. We have taxonomy term reference in core. We have user reference and node reference in the references module that's imported to Backdrop. And then the adopted solution for Drupal has been the entity reference module. They took a little look at the code that was inside there and decided that was not the way we wanted to go with the code, but I think it is the way we want to go with the feature. So it would be good to think about how to get the feature we want out of the code that we have, and see if we can't build a UI that works more like entity reference, and the code that looks more like references. So I don't think it's going to be too hard. References is already kind of abstracted into like a reference type, or a reference base, and then a reference for nodes and a reference for users. We could do the same thing for reference per term, and make sure we have a consistent interface that lets us choose which one. I think all the features are there. We just need to work on cleaning up the user interface to make that work. We also talked a little bit about adding a redirect-like functionality into core. I think getting global redirect in core is going to be something we could handle in 1.3 if we were able to get that done in time. It is kind of a user experience task of like, oh, I changed the alias and now I can't get to my content from my old URLs. I think getting that in would be great. I think also doing like clean URL redirects would be good. I'm not sure about the rest of redirect module, like the UI that lets you see the listing. Maybe that should remain separate. Maybe that should be a separate module we should think about putting in 1.4. A nice clean way for people to manage those, having them appear on the node page so you can see your list of aliases and your list of redirects. That's something redirect module provides. I don't know exactly where we're going to come down on that in terms of how much should be in core and what should be left to contrib, but I am open to trying to figure out how to make that whole process easier for people to figure out what their redirects are. So let's keep that in our minds for 1.4 as well. And as you guys are building sites with Backdrop, we should take a look at the contrib modules, the ones that are being used most often, and see if there are other things we should move into core. There have been a couple of things that Nate and I have talked about, like, for example, slideshows. There's lots of different ways to do slideshows in Drupal. There's none of them that come out of the box. It would be fantastic if we could get something that was really easy for people to configure, like if we could set up some kind of slideshow library in a view and ship that as part of our homepage layout. That would be fantastic for people to just be able to log in and change that and get it going the way they wanted. But there's a little bit of a debate over how complicated that needs to be. Like, I would vote for Flex Slider, but Flex Slider has an entirely separate user interface for configuring your sliders and having different formats for each of them, and is that too much for like a simple use case in core? Should we choose something that's just, you know, a JavaScript application to a particular view with no settings? I don't know. It's definitely up for debate. I think getting some information on what people are actually doing with their Backdrop sites would also be really useful. So think about that as you're working, and we can plan for May. All the time, we are trying to work on user experience and developer experience. Our next release is focused particularly on user experience, but if we have issues that are ready before 1.3, we can put them in at any time, as long as the scope isn't too large. Something like a new field UI will probably wait to 1.3, but something like a terminology update could go in at any time. So trying to get user experience improved all the time is good. Also developer experience, if you're working on building sites or writing modules or making themes, and you find something that's just weird and you don't understand how it works, open an issue about it, and we'll try and figure out why it's weird and if we can fix it. Sometimes we can't fix it in the 1.x release cycle because it might require an API change, but it would be good to at least note those weird things and come up with a plan for how we can make them less weird and easier to understand for people in the future. If we are going to be moving down market from Drupal and trying to appeal to the average PHP developer, we've got to make the software more intuitive for everyone. So noting the places where it's not and finding a way to fix it is going to be important for us long term. All right, there are tags on GitHub for both user experience and developer experience issues, but instead of using milestones, we're using like square brackets in the title with UX or DX. And developer experience issues are, theme experience is the same thing for us. All developers are developers. So anything that you find odd in any part of the system, just tag with DX. What else do we have going on here? Sprints. So every Thursday, usually after this meeting, we are in IRC working on Backdrop together. If you don't have a Thursday or you can't give up any extra time on a Thursday and you want to work on Backdrop any other time, that's also great. We love people who work on Backdrop whenever they work on Backdrop, but you will often find a lot of people working on Backdrop on Thursdays. So if you need to chat about something, figure out something philosophical, it's good to get a lot of feedback on Thursdays. We meet in IRC in our channel Pound Backdrop. We also are very active on the GitHub issue queue. And for those of you who are not comfortable either on GitHub or on IRC, we do have a Reddit channel. And hopefully soon we'll also be able to add the backdropcms.org website as a place where people can collaborate and work together during sprints, but not yet. So soon. Upcoming events. Backdrop Summit is over. It was fantastic. Drupal Camp Ohio was also last weekend. I haven't gotten any update on how that was, but I'm hoping it was great. Drupal Camp Mexico is coming up November 5th through 7th. The weekend following that is Drupal Camp I forget. I'll have to look it up. It's something in Africa, which seemed really exciting. Anyway, I don't remember, but it's the November 10th, I think. November 10th through 12th. It's in the middle of the week. And then we have nothing probably through the entire month of December. But in February we have Sand Camp, and in March we have Drupal Camp Utah. And these are all events that are Drupal events, but people who are there interested in learning about or talking about Backdrop. If you want to attend, it's a safe place for you to offer a session on these subjects. We have, in fact, a couple of people requested sessions specifically on Backdrop. At Drupal Camp in San Diego, we're going to be doing a Backdrop training, which will be exciting. I think we're going to do a full day. Last year we did a half day. This year we'll do a full day on Backdrop training. So that could be the second ever Backdrop training event, which could be really, I don't know, I'm excited about it. So yeah, if you're interested in going to Drupal events and talking about Backdrop, there's still a bunch where that can happen. And we'll try and engage the size of our community again next year and see if maybe it's time to do a Backdrop only event. But for now, I think still the same community. We should still be sharing information together. So we'll hang out at Drupal events for a while. I think that's all I had on my list. It looked like we had a couple of questions. Does anyone want to fill me in on what happened in the group chat?
There's not too much going on. We're really just kind of chatting.
Okay.
Mike said he's interested in dealing with references or helping with references, which is awesome. We got a little while before that needs to happen if we're targeting 1.4, but it would be great to see some things start developing in the contrib space and then iterating on that and then moving it into core.
All right, well, does anyone have any questions that need answering or anything they'd like to add?
Jeff is asking, give 8.99 a whirl. $8.99 is, one second, let me actually find it. He probably knows what it is. He's probably going to say it before I can get there. Path Auto follow-up, a UX improvement to move path pattern settings to content type configurations. That would be awesome.
Yes. Also, I'd like to put permissions there too.
Needs testing. Okay, I think that's mostly it.
Fantastic. Okay, I want to test that. I want to play with it. Dibs.
Dibs. Okay. Maybe you work on that today, and I'll look at your rush.
Oh, that would be great.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate everybody coming and joining. Lots of viewers, lots of participants this week. Feel free, you guys can. All of these meetings are public meetings because you can actually say things if you so desire. So. Otherwise, thanks everybody for dropping in live, and thanks everybody for watching. Everybody have a great week. Happy Backdrop Day. Bye, guys.